Order the committee of the whole meeting for May 6, 2024. The time is 7:03 p.m. Ben, would you please call the roll?
Member Warren?
Here.
Member Matheny?
Here.
Member Orr?
Here.
Member Owens? Member Wyrick? That's why you paused. Member McLeister?
Here.
Member Stroya?
Here.
7 present.
Start off with community and economic development. Okay, so this came back from the Planning Commission on Wednesday. Ben, if you'd like to give an overview. Thank you. All right, you read my mind. You can take it if you're giving me.
Oh, okay. Yes, this is returning from Planning Commission from their May meeting. This is the rewrite of our park and institutional district. Planning Commission did have 3 recommendations. That explains that. All right. Planning Commission did have 3 recommendations. First was that for section 2 of the proposed ordinance use regulations, this is a standard section that's in all of our zoning district chapters. We have a slightly different draft of that same section in chapter 1136 with some more modernized language, and they liked that language better. So their suggestion was just to replace this language with functionally identical language from chapter 1136. Next was for the general facilities setback from street right-of-ways. It's currently written as 20 feet. Their suggestion was to increase it to 40 feet. And then for height regulations, the current and the proposed height limit is 60 feet. Their suggestion was on properties of 1 acre or less, the height be 40 feet, on over 1 acre, 60 feet. I feel it's important to note that the minimum lot size, which is in section 4, is 1 acre. So having a lot smaller than 1 acre is technically illegal. However, we don't need to make any decisions on that tonight. Tonight, we just need to set a public hearing date for this item.
And if it was under 1 acre, it wouldn't be in that category to begin with, right?
We have some neighborhood parks that are under 1 acre, but you could not establish a new property less than 1 acre.
Makes sense. Any other questions, comments? I was at the Planning Commission meeting. It was a very in-depth conversation. Good proposal. I'll make the motion to set a public hearing on ordinance 35, 2024 for June 10th, 2024 at 6:45 p.m.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And I'll make a motion to postpone further consideration of ordinance 35-2024 until after the June 10th public hearing. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, and then moving on to the second matter, 3B, is the updated version of the annexation. Ben, again, I'll let you do the overview. I won't let you read all the parcel, or I won't make you read all the parcel numbers, but you can if you want to.
No, thank you. After some trials, our annexation was approved by the Stark County Commissioners. The next step in that process is we, the city, need to accept the annexation. So this ordinance is saying, yes, we accept this territory into our city.
Are we sure they accepted it?
I have been sent the paperwork by the county commissioner.
Just verifying. That's good news. Any comments, questions on that?
Nope.
I will make a motion to move item 3A onto the council agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to finance and property. Stephanie.
The first item is, and Jimmy, you can mention about this, but it's just the second person on our investment funds. We recently moved our investment funds like probably.
So, yeah, we statutory review for meter investments, and so, they recommended us an update of our investment policy, and so, with their recommendations, we want to update it to follow, keep following with Ohio Pass Code, and as well as adding a designee to not only just the finance director. So if something would happen to Gina, I could be the designee, or whoever would be the designee, keep on those things.
Sounds good, and that's an emergency, just as we move everything forward. And move to put that on the agenda.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, 4B, an appropriation of funds into some different accounts, from the water distribution fund to parks distribution, COVID monies, and I'll let you talk about that as well, Jim.
Yeah, so we want to appropriate some grant monies for the Parks Department, amount of $30,950 for the Permanent Performing Arts Pavilion project, and then for the CAK Water Booster Station, it's kind of become an emergency to update that. So we want to delay the Woodrow Locust Waterline project, use $301,000 that we had set aside for that, and add $450,000 for the CAK booster station.
Any concerns or questions? Kevin, can you tell us a little bit about the performing arts?
Sure. That's the small children's performing kind of stage, not pavilion. I'm trying not to say amphitheater. I don't want people to think it's going to be anything really large. But if you're looking at the Dogwood Possibility Playground and you look to the west, there's a spot right there that we're looking to use some money from Akron Children's Hospital. It fits with their mission with kids, children, community, and kind of having a little space. And it's something we're working to design and use all grant money to do hopefully this year. Just something small, something little.
Thank you for moving it forward, though. I know it's a project that you're not the
Yes, it got over-designed a couple times into being the Jackson Amphitheater, and we didn't have the money for that. So now it's going back to being right-sized for the money that we have.
Okay, any other questions? If not, I will motion to move those to the council agenda.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 4C.
Okay, so we're going to see the and we'll do this separately, but they're talking about real estate. So the first one, 4C, is the 5.58 acres that are over on Nevada that we are going to try to sell. They were deemed too small for some of the fields we initially thought they would be used for. Any other concerns or questions? Okay.
How much do you need that from?
Yeah. Catherine or Ben, do we know how much the property would be worth at this point?
We purchased it for, I believe, $150,000 and are talking to our realtor. Our current asking price is $250,000.
I'm asking prices for
Oh, 400, my bad.
based it on units, rental units that could occupy the property, based on 40 rental units, I believe,
10,000.
at 10,000 each. So
Well, that property was looped in when we bought all the Meyer property, right? And it's like pieces and parcels. And so I think it's even hard to say exactly. I know we know what it was worth, but it was so looped in and it's money for that money property, so.
And I think the other thing that's worth saying again is that, we had hoped that this was going to be for community athletic fields, but it's not adequate. And hopefully we can find another place somewhere in the community for this.
If you stand there and you look at it with the naked eye, it'll look like it would fit. But when an engineer, looks at it and puts in the factors of all the parking that's needed, the bathroom, the path for emergency vehicles, it wasn't enough space.
Yeah.
Okay. I motion to move item 4C to the council agenda. Your second? Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay. The next one, and Ben, maybe I'll let you talk about this, but this is property that we're taking back from the CIC. It was proposed legislation that was premature due to the wells. And so now we have to take it back into foreclosure, correct? Which is what we'll do.
So previously, council had authorized transferring these properties to the CIC for sale. At that time, I believe we were hoping the Arrowhead Water Well project would move faster than it has. The bottom line is we have operating water wells on that property, so they're not ready to be sold. So we are taking them back, essentially.
Okay. And standard procedure. We got a little ahead of ourselves. All right, motion to move item 4D to the council agenda.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, and then 4E is looking at to accept a donation of property from the city's Community Improvement Corporation, making a significant step for the realization of a consolidated fire and EMS station at the corner of Viking and North Main. So I know that people weren't sure about where that space was, and so right there you have it. Anything else we need to talk about? We're just taking it back in the CIC right now. Okay? All right, a motion and a second, or a motion to move item 4 into the council agenda.
Troy, seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, moving on to personnel and safety. Okay, Chief Kemp and Chief Kramer.
President Stroya,
Sure.
we've been asked to remove this from consideration this evening.
Okay.
They'd like to gather some additional information and bring it back to us later.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to move item, or, I'll make a motion to, let's start.
We don't,
We need to make any
Yeah,
more.
okay.
Just take it
No.
off the agenda.
Okay, that's fine. We can do that. Then it wasn't there.
So, President Stroya, we'd like to amend the agenda and move 4C and have 4B. It's a nice discussion.
5C.
I'm sorry, 5C and 5B. It's a nice discussion and to look at the fire station engagement plan. We have Tim Bennett, Beeman, thank you, sir, from APP Architects on this project. We'll go over to the mayor and administration.
Yes, thank you very much for attending. We wanted to go back and look at a plan that we can present and inform our public as to we look forward for developing an engagement plan for the North Canton Fire Station. It's titled Associated with the Design and Planning of the Consolidated Fire and EMS Services Center. We've been tasked to look at a number of things. We've been in conversations with members of our fire department and staff. And once again, I have tasked Mr. Benjamin Young to present a PowerPoint for you to help better, for you to better view, picture in your mind what is being involved in the discussion for the Consolidated Fire and EMS Station. I understand previously there might have been some miscommunication or some people didn't really understand why we feel that we need to have a new fire station for the protection of our employees and for the services that they render to our public. So Ben, would you please go ahead and start the presentation?
Absolutely. Microphone still doesn't want to cooperate. So thank you, council, for your time this evening. I will do my very best to keep this to half an hour or less, but as we go, please feel free to interrupt with questions. Don't wait till the end and try to remember what your question was. So I'm not there yet. This presentation for you all tonight was worked on not only by myself and Liam, but in collaboration with our fire department members and Mr. Beeman from our architecture firm, App Architecture. He and many members of the department were very gracious in being here with us tonight. So if there's a question that I am incapable of answering for you, I have support here to answer it for you. So the history of this project, I could say begins in 2021 when I was first asked to audit fire department in my role as policy analyst, but it really begins 20 years ago. The city of North Canton, for more than 20 years, has been attempting to build a new consolidated fire and EMS center for our first responders. In doing research for this project, I have found at least 5 schematic designs that the city has paid for. 2004, 2008, 2012, 2018. I didn't end up finding the 2015 one, and we should have taken that off. I'm sorry. And 2023. So this project is a long-term need. 3 mayors, 4 directors of administration, 5 directors of finance have all been saying that this project is needed for our community. Next slide, please. What was really striking to me, looking back across these 5 designs that I've been able to find, is that they are all, the ask from the fire department is all functionally the same. They all want more dorms. Every design needs bigger bays. Every design has more offices. Every design has a decontamination room. Every design has a training room, and every design adds parking. So you'll see the chart there on the side is a comparison of the station elements from all of those designs the city has had done over the years at various locations, and some without even knowing what the location would be. And there are always 10 dorms. So even 2004, which says 20 beds, it was 10 dorms with 2 beds in each dorm, even though all the subsequent ones had 1 bed at each dorm. There are always 6 bays, except for 2004. There are always 5 to 7 offices. There's always a decontamination room, always a hose tower. In the low 30s parking spaces. So for 20 years, the fire department has been asking for the same thing and saying we need this. And it's fascinating to me that we haven't kept upping the ask over those 20 years. So let's talk about our current facility. So Station 1, which is located on North Main Street, 300 North Main Street, was designed and built in 1972 for a volunteer fire department. When it was built, it wasn't even conceived that we might have a full-time professional department. That is evident from the layout of the station. And at that time, nearly all of the volunteers worked at the Hoover Company just 2 blocks away. The station had no sleeping quarters. It had 1 office when it was originally built, and it was not intended for professional staff. In 2023, there have been additions since. In 2023, we made some minor changes, and we sacrificed the chief's offices to create dorms to allow this station to function 24/7. So recently, you may have seen on some of the Facebook groups, there was a joke being made about how our Google page for our Fire Station 1 said that it was closed at night and on the weekends. And that was ridiculous. Fire stations don't close. No, it really was closed at night on weekends because there were no sleeping quarters for the firefighters. Our other station, next slide. Station 2 was built in 1957, not as a fire station, but as a parks garage. So its bays were designed for pickup trucks, not ambulances and fire engines. It was converted in the late 90s and early 2000s, and at that time, it was intended for EMS only. At that time, our departments were separated. We had an EMS department and a still volunteer fire department. So even when they converted this building, it was only intended for ambulances, not fire engines. Over the years, several additions have been made, and we've become a combined department. And now we have an engine that runs out of that station, and it's operating 24/7, and we have dorms. And although these stations have served us remarkably well for not being designed for what they're being used for, we have simply outgrown. Our department is now a full-time modern professional department, and it needs facilities to match that. Next slide. So let's run through some of those needs and how those would be addressed in a new consolidated station. So number 1 is apparatus bays. Our current bays were designed in the 50s and 70s and were not intended to accommodate modern fire apparatus. Our longest current bays are 50 feet long. Our ladder truck is 43 feet long. I can't see Drew. 43 feet long. So there are 7 feet of clearance left for that longest truck. There is incredibly limited space to move around these vehicles, especially if you're in full turnout gear trying to get to a fire. In 2020, we paid a premium price for a custom designed fire engine to fit in Station 2. And that picture in the bottom left corner with the engine looking out the window slit is that custom built engine still barely fitting in that bay at Station 2. You could not walk between the front of that truck and that garage door. Both stations are also equipped with fixed vehicle exhaust capture systems. What this means is that we have installed a line for an exhaust to match a truck. So when that truck gets replaced, if the exhaust pipe on that new truck isn't on the same side, our exhaust capture system doesn't work anymore, and we have to get a new one. So what would the proposed station do? So the proposed station would have 70-foot bays to easily accommodate modern fire apparatus. Space to store not only the apparatus, but the support vehicles, with enough space to safely maneuver around all of them, even in full turnout gear. I'm gonna, in a moment, ask Mr. Beamet to explain a little bit more how this works, but the proposal is for an indirect exhaust capture system, which means that we can put any truck in any parking spot in the bay and don't have to worry about if the exhaust gets captured. It will work regardless of positioning, and that will also help keep the exhaust and other airborne contaminants away from our dormitories, which our current stations don't do. So Tim, if you could explain for us a little bit how the sensors work and it pulls things.
Sure.
He's better at the technical stuff than I am.
Is your next slide the hot zone slide by any chance?
I can make it. But
Yeah, why don't you go to the next slide? So we have visually here. There it is. Okay. That's enough to make it work. That'll work.
no. There we go.
Okay, all right, so joint health and visual aid. So this is, so what Ben's referring to is, so the apparatus is this diagram. This is a diagram of the new proposed fire station. And so the hot zone is what we call where the apparatus is reside. What that means is that when vehicles come back and call, whether it's fire or EMS, there are contaminants that are all over the vehicles, turnout gear, repair, you're covered with carcinogens from a fire, or it could be bacteriological, it could be viral, anything that you're coming back from a call, that all comes back to that. And so the idea is that you want to be contaminating all that material into a decontamination area. So the exhaust system we're talking about is primarily for diesel exhaust. And so when the vehicles start up, you've got the first responders are being exposed to those carcinogens and things, so it's nitrous oxide, carbon monoxide, and particulate matter from diesel. So the idea is you want to get that material out of the bay as quickly and efficiently as possible. So when we have this general bay exhaust system,
Essentially, that bay is always under negative pressure, we call it in our engineering terms, meaning that when those contaminants come out, they're exhausted immediately. When bay doors open, and you've got a lot of fresh air coming in, and we're introducing fresh air, and the exhaust is then taken care of and out of the building. So firefighters, as Ben will explain, are constantly being exposed to carcinogens, and we want to manage those that are being generated from our own equipment as quickly as we can. And I think we'll get back into decontamination here.
We will, yes. No, forward a second. All right, the next need is just regular old storage space. I don't know if any of you have ever had the privilege of doing a ride-along, but I spent 12 hours with our fire department, and I was amazed at the amount of stuff that is fit into fire trucks. And there are backups and redundancies and extras for all of that equipment at our station. So there's their turnout gear that they wear, the hoses, medical supplies, extrication equipment, rope rigging, ladders, training equipment. And if you visit our stations, this stuff is everywhere. I mean, every nook and cranny they can find, they have put something in, to the point that they are even storing this equipment off-site in other city-owned buildings. So there's a small garage on this property here. We have fire equipment stored in this garage here at the Civic Center. They have equipment stored at City Hall. They have equipment stored at the water treatment plant. They've outgrown their space. So in the proposed station, we have dedicated rooms for all of these categories. We have a room for their turnout gear with new lockers big enough for each person to have 2 sets. We have dedicated spaces for their medical supplies, for their SCBAs, which is their breathing air and oxygen, their hoses, as well as some additional storage space in a mezzanine above the bays on the north end of the building for additional training and equipment. Next slide. Beyond just emergency responses, there are lots of other things that our fire department does. They need to be trained to be as effective as they can be for us when they respond, and there's also work to be done. There's filing, there's public records requests, there's incident reports, there's the Fire Prevention Bureau, which does tons of inspections and plan reviews, all those things. And this is another function where the space isn't quite doing for them what it needs to do. So neither of the 2 stations currently have sufficient space for them to do these things. There are total across both facilities 4 offices shared by 3 inspectors, 2 supervisors, the department's administrative staff, the on-duty staff completing reports, and the on-duty supervisor if he needs an office to have a private conversation with somebody about their performance. Results in a lot of people getting kicked out of their offices. On top of that, the office shared by our 2 chiefs is in a different building than the office their admin assistant is in, meaning they spend a not small part of their day calling or driving back and forth to coordinate with each other. The current facilities also permit limited hands-on training. They're both really intended as lecture-style training areas. So the 2 pictures on this slide are our 2 training areas. And as I was asked to point out to you all, both of these areas, if you need to get to the kitchen, you have to go through the training room. So we teach CPR classes to the public in one of these training rooms. If you're on shift, the current policy is if it's a nice day outside, you go out the back door and walk around the training room instead of disturbing the public training session. And for live trainings, so put on all your gear and get used to the feeling of the weight and practice breaching doors or manning a hose. We currently use the post office or Randy's Automotive, but both of those are scheduled to be sold or demolished. And so we'll be right back to having no live training spaces. In the proposed station, We will have 5 offices, one for each of the 5 office uses needed. 2 chiefs, 1, 2, their administrative assistant, 3, the prevention bureau, 4, shift commander, 5. There's a separate report area closer to the bays for on-shift staff to fill out their reports, but it's still in the living space with their crew, so they can still be part of the team and social while they're doing their reports. There's a large training room similar to what we have now, intended for lecture style or non-intensive live training, so CPR practice, medication administration, those sorts of things. But in the mezzanine, again, above the bays on the north side of the building, and this is a wonderful idea brought to us by App Architecture that is part of the reason we chose App Architecture. We saw they've done this in a station in Wadsworth. The mezzanine is equipped with a training window, which is essentially a hole in the wall, and a bunch of anchor points built into the concrete that they can practice ropes, practice ladders, but also set up fake walls and fill it with smoke in a smoke machine and have new people practice wearing all their gear, going through a house they're not familiar with in smoke. They can't feel, they can't see what's happening in front of them. So it's an excellent opportunity to ensure our people have the best training they can have. Again, feel free to interrupt the questions at any time. So that, all those needs are equipment or training or doing the work. But another big part of the fire department's needs are for its personnel. Unlike almost every other job in the world, these men and women are asked to live at their job for 24, 48 hours at a time. And so that requires very different personnel space than what an office setting might require. Because both of our stations have been converted from an original use not intended for people to live there, they lack some of these personnel spaces. And this is only going to become a bigger problem for us as we need to keep increasing staffing. So the chart on screen is the number of responses that our staff has been called to in the last decade. And as you can see, it just keeps increasing. This is part of why the audit that we had completed by Fitch and Associates said that we really needed to go up to 3 ambulances at a time, that we were paying too much in overtime, only staffing 2 ambulances and calling people back. We would be safer for the community and pay less in overtime, going up to 3 ambulances. So that led to the March 1, 24 changes, that we now do staff 3 ambulances 24/7. And that's why we made minor renovations to Station 1, so that we can staff that 3rd ambulance. Because Station 2 can only fit physically 2 ambulances. So to staff a 3rd, we had to have people 24/7 at Station 1. But that just sort of exacerbates our personnel problems, right? Because again, we're in another building that isn't designed for somebody to live there. So total now, we can sleep 11 staff in shared dormitories, not individual rooms, and it is gender limited to 7 men and 4 women, because that's the breakdown of the shared dormitories. Neither of these dormitories are ADA compliant, fire code compliant, modern building code compliant. How we got the conversion in 23 for the minor renovations is we claimed exemption as a historic building under the Ohio Building Code to not have to come up to modern fire code. Currently, we staff up to 8 people at a time, and we have to plan who is at what station, because you'll notice that we cannot have a full 8 of either gender on staff without running out of dormitory space. Or saying, okay, for tonight, this is now a men's dorm, or for tonight, this is now a women's dorm. So studies have shown that 40% of fire and EMS personnel suffer from sleep disorders, not only because of calls waking them up in the middle of the night, but also because in shared dormitories, you get disturbed by the people you're in the dormitory with. For example, the top picture is the back room of the men's dormitory at Station 2. The next picture down is the doorway you have to go through to get out of that back room into the next person's sleeping space. And then past that is then the door to get out of the room or go to the bathroom. So if you're sleeping in the back room and you get up, you have to walk past every other sleeping person within 5 feet of them to leave that room and go to the bathroom or go on your call. It's very hard not to disturb everybody else. So, oh, we're not done yet. I keep forgetting about the showers. Next slide. On top of this, most people, certainly office workers, are never asked to take a shower at work. Firefighters, because they live there, are, not only for their daily health routine, but also you come back from a call, you're sweaty, you're dirty, you want to take a shower. At both stations, the showers are located in semi-communal areas, poorly separated for privacy. At Station 1, it is a YMCA locker room style shower for 3 people. At Station 2, so the bottom picture is Station 2, the top picture is Station 1. At Station 2, as you can see, the only thing separating the shower from the rest of the room is 2 shower curtains. The rest of that room is the dormitory, where everybody else is sleeping or hanging out or waiting for the next call. So now the new station.
So to interject, the only reason we were able to get the exemption for the sleeping quarters was because the building's 50 plus years old. It designated.
Yeah, there's an age limitation that your building must be older than X
That's
number of
that.
years.
It is.
So the proposed new station design has 10 individual bunkers. So that's enough to, in the future, as we keep growing, staff up to 5 ambulances 24/7. Remember, right now we're at 3. We like to staff 4 at a time. 8 people on staff is 4 ambulances worth, but our minimum staffing is 3. We will always have 3. This addresses separation and privacy and disturbing other people while you're sleeping concerns. Everybody has their own space on your own sleep schedule. If you need to get up to use the bathroom, you don't have to walk past anybody else. It also has 4 individual shower restroom stalls. So at Station 1, remember when I said we have a lovely YMCA style shower? Well, to convert that for male and female use, we added locks on the bathroom door. But that means you have to shut everybody else out of the bathroom while you're taking a shower. This would allow somebody to be taking a shower and somebody can still use the bathroom. There are also 2 public restrooms near the lobby for if we're hosting trainings, when we're hosting CPR classes, things like that. And then there's another restroom near the administrative offices that they don't have to walk all the way to the dorms and use those restrooms. And now for, in my mind, the big one, decontaminate. And as far as I can tell, what really started this conversation back in 2004 to begin in earnest. So particularly after 9/11, there has been an explosion in research into the dangers of being a first responder. You all may be aware there's a national cancer fund paid for by the federal government for firefighters who responded to 9/11. And it has really revealed the dangers of being a firefighter. So the Center for Disease Control, their research shows that firefighters are 10% more likely to be diagnosed with cancer than any of the rest of us, and 14% more likely to die from that cancer. The International Agency for Research on Cancer, which is a branch of the UN, has officially classified firefighting as carcinogenic to humans. This risk is linked to the carcinogens that Mr. Beeman was talking about earlier, of not only the diesel exhaust in the bays, but whatever's burning in that fire that you just went into, and yeah, you were wearing a mask while you were in the fire, but you came out and you're covered in ash and soot and asbestos and whatever else was in that building. And so decontaminating is very important. But our facilities are outdated. We don't have a separate decontamination room. And improper decontamination means that you're exposed to those things longer and you're repeatedly exposed to those things. So, for example, we don't have hot and cold zones, as Mr. Beam was talking about. If you go to Station 1, the separation between our apparatus bay and the dormitory space is a wooden door with no seals, and you can see daylight on the top and the bottom. They are likely exposed, our people are likely exposed to these things longer than they arguably should be. And they may be getting into their sleeping and living quarters because we don't have decontamination space. Next slide. So this is a slide provided to me by App Architecture, and it's their sort of best practices about the dangers of decontamination. And so, cancer caused 61% of career firefighter line of duty deaths, 22 to 2017. Caused 70% of firefighter line of duty deaths in 16. Firefighters are a 9% higher risk than the general US population, 14% higher risk than dying, as we said earlier. And it's really important to have those separations of hot and cold zones. And then it's also important to have separations of hot and cold showers. So right now, our firefighters use the same shower that they take their daily morning shower in to wash off all of the contaminants that they may come back with. So the slide that we got a brief preview of earlier, the new station has designated hot and cold zones. And that negative pressure exhaust system that Mr. Beeman talked about earlier not only creates negative pressure in the bays to suck contaminants out, but it creates functionally an airlock between the hot and the cold zone. That the hot zone is always drawing air out of the cold zone instead of the cold zone drawing air into the hot zone to keep those contaminants away from bunk rooms, showers, food, kitchen, eating spaces.
Ben, it's true now, right, that at both fire station locations, their turnout gear is currently stored in what we consider a hot zone, right? All the time.
Any space for turnout gear storage is going to be a hot zone. At Station 1, it is more contained. There is a sort of locker area, but as I talked about, it's separated by one wooden door.
Sure.
At Station 2, it is much less separate. There's a rack of turnout gear over here, there's a rack of turnout gear over there, there's a rack of turnout gear down that hallway, just because the building wasn't designed to store turnout gear. In addition to the hot and cold zones, the bottom right corner of the hot zone on this map is a designated decontamination space. It has 2 showers for people to come back, wash off all the carcinogens. It will have a gear dryer, a gear cleaner. It will be, right now we don't have separated laundry at our stations of the residential laundry and the potentially carcinogenic laundry. This will separate those two. And so it really does everything that best practice at the moment tells us we can do to keep them safe.
And I'm going to add one more point to that, with the decon side, is that the idea is that we're preventing these contaminants from being brought into that cool zone, which is the living quarters. And indirectly, what happens is that if those materials are not getting washed and removed, then the clothing, the bedding, all that gets taken home. So those firefighters are going back to their homes, and they're potentially bringing those contaminants back to their spouses, to their wives, the children. And so that's why it's so important to separate these things. And what does that mean also that, if they come get to another call, they're bringing this contaminants potentially back in to the house, to your rooms. So that's why it's so important to have these designations.
Thank you. Thank you. So the next question is location. And I have seen it on social media and I have had it asked of me several times. Why not just add on to Station 1? Well, the reality is that we really don't own a lot of land at Station 1. We own 0.42 acres, and the parking lot behind our station isn't actually our parking lot. It's the church's parking lot that they have been incredibly gracious to let us use for decades at no rent, no lease. We did, as a thank you, pave their parking lot for them last year. But that's really all we have ever paid in return for their service to our community. So there just simply isn't physical space at Station 1 to add 4 more bays for a consolidated fire station. For Station 2, there is slightly more land, although you probably still couldn't fit 4 more bays. And that's also assuming we want to keep the 2 bays that exist that were designed for pickup trucks and not fire engines. And the buildable land there is about 8.1 acres. There are 2.81, sorry, not 8.1. There are 2 other factors that contribute to Station 2 not being an ideal location. Number one, it's in a primarily residential area. All that's around it is a park, neighborhood, and the schools. And we already get complaints from the neighbors at least 3 times a year of, do they really have to leave with their sirens? Can't you just drive to Main Street and then turn the siren on?
Again, on that top picture, where you see the blue square, that is the fire department property. And where you see the cars parked, that sliver is owned by Community Christian Church. And then if you've been up there, there's a little bit of grass that takes you into the parking lot of Diebold next door. That's their grass, okay? But they're not willing to relinquish that, or for us, so, or have any kind of a working relationship with the church. And so that, again, that's why it's limited parking. Thank you.
Where was that? Secondly, the school district intends to build not only a middle school, but a sports complex along 7th Street, which is just going to make us getting out in an emergency, particularly at certain times of day, even harder than we already struggle with sometimes Hoover High School traffic. So it's not an ideal long-term location for our consolidated fire EMS facility. And total, across both of these 2 stations, they have 12 parking spaces, which is not enough even for Monday night training for the fire department when 30 firefighters show up. So how did we come to the proposed location? You all probably remember originally we acquired property at the corner of Hull and North Main Street, 1200 block. At the time, that was the best property we could get. We had 2 GIS analyses done. First was by a private consultant, Fitch and Associates. That's the map on the bottom in green. And what their recommendation came back was that if we could snap our fingers and put a station anywhere, Bitzer Park would be the perfect location. It would get the entire city, except for, you might be able to see, there's a little bit of white in somebody in Monticello's backyard that we wouldn't be able to get to in 6 minutes or less. So that really told us that we needed to be as close to the city center as possible. Second, our firefighters, their local union, the IAFF local number, somebody shout it out for me, 3489, had their own study done. Their map is the top map. And the location they came up with is the red dot with a black outline. It's a pentagon, but it looks like a dot. That has the letter A labeling it. It is literally across the street from the property we have now acquired. And so when this property at the corner of Viking and North Main became available, it was the perfect opportunity to get a better location for this fire department to give the best possible response times to the entire city. It's really, for the foreseeable future, as close as we are possibly going to get to being on the town square and having enough land for a fire station. So that's how we came to the location we're at today. And we are now trying to sell the former proposed site at Holland. So, talked a lot about what all that this station is going to do, but nothing's free. What is this going to cost? The proposed new consolidated facility, all in, is estimated to cost approximately $14 million. As we've previously discussed several times, $10 million for the building itself. The site at Viking and Main has some pretty significant grading differences. And so we think there's going to be about $2 million in site work associated. That's grading, parking lot, generator, detention basin, everything outside the building. And then there's probably another $2 million in everything else that goes into making a building happen. Furniture to put in the building, the architect, the contractor, sourcing little design elements, those sorts of things. We are already doing what we can to defray some of these costs. So the demolition that has occurred on the site already, we received grants through Stark County Land Bank to take down those buildings. Many of you driving by have probably noticed that a surprisingly large amount of dirt has appeared on the site to start leveling it out. So that fill dirt, which we were very lucky is good, clean, compactable fill dirt, is from our Peachtree Waterline project down on the south side of Everhard. Normally, when putting in a new water line, we would pay a contractor to just take the dirt away. We don't want to get rid of it. We said, wait, can you just drive half a mile up the road and dump it on our other property to help us out? And our contractor doing that job said, absolutely, that's cheaper for me, that's cheaper for you, let's do it. So all of that dirt that you see at that property, we got for free to fill that property. Although it was previously stated that we could build this fire station regardless of any new funding source, that is not financially feasible. We have to have a new funding source to make this fiscally possible. And I know I've said it before, but I want to reiterate again that the decision to regionalize dispatch will not fund a fire station and should not be considered as, oh, if we regionalize dispatch now, we can pay for our fire station. That should be a separate conversation about, are we getting the best value for our residents? Not, can we build a fire station on another department's back? So, it's a large cost. We have to have a new revenue source. How is this going to help us in the long run financially? There are cost offsets that we will realize by building this station. The biggest by far is fleet reduction. So this is another thing that was recommended both by internal audits, to Chief Kramer's credit, him years before the audit started, and our Fitch and Associates audit, is that because we have two stations, we have to have equipment at both stations. And so we arguably have more than we really need to service the needs of the community. If we could get to one consolidated facility, we could reduce our fleet of apparatus, so that's fire engines, from 6 to 4. And over the estimated 50-year lifespan of this building, assuming each engine gets replaced once every 20 years, just at today's cost for a new engine, assuming no inflation over the next 50 years, that's $7.5 million in savings for the city. The second is overtime reduction. by properly staffing ambulance crews, we can actually have more people on duty and pay less in personnel costs. That's why we went up to a 3 ambulance minimum. That is made even more possible if we have proper dormitory and personnel space to support that staffing model. Third is decreased facilities maintenance. Our 2 stations are 50+ years old. We can absolutely, anything's possible, you can keep them running. But the types of repairs they need are starting to get to be the really high ticket items. New boilers, new HVAC systems, which if we put in new, we have to come up to modern code for all these things. Arguably, the high durability concrete at Station 2 already should be repoured, but that requires shutting down that station to do it, and that's the station we primarily run all EMS calls out of. Simply put, keeping aging facilities running is going to be less cost effective in the long run than keeping a newer facility running. Fourth is the sale of Station 1. There is really no other municipal use that could go into Station 1 and effectively reutilize it. There's simply, while the bays are very nice, there isn't enough support space for, say, the police department to reuse it. According to the county auditor, it's currently appraised at approximately $1 million. While it is a small site, it is in a commercial area, and I would hope that we can get somewhere close to that for it if we can make this station a reality. Fifth is off-site training costs. As I talked about, we don't have a lot of possibility for our people to do live trainings. So that means we send them to other venues to do live trainings, typically on overtime. If we have training facilities in-house, they can train on shift during their shift in the facilities we have right here on site. And finally, there's the potential for repurposing Station 2. So I know I just said that maintaining an aging building is difficult and expensive, but being a fire station is a very hard use on a building. There's the potential, particularly for Station 2, given its location in Dogwood Park, to be repurposed into a rental facility, very similar to Dogwood Shelter, which is a much gentler use on the building. It could be split into 2 halves, and both of those halves individually are about the same size as the current Dogwood Shelter. Assuming we rented it at the same rate and it got rented at, had a same occupancy, it's about $100,000 annually in additional revenue for the city. So that's the station. That's why the fire department has been asking for it for 20 years. That's why this administration, the previous administration, the administration before that felt this was a needed project to pursue. But now we have to get there. And so what we have for you all tonight is a proposal for an engagement plan of how to move forward with this project. So this plan is proposed in light that in the fairly recent past, we have made 2 unsuccessful attempts to secure funding through income tax increases. Given the substantial funding ask required, it's pretty likely that we're going to need to go to the ballot. And so we should have some public input as to what it is that's getting put on the ballot. So the engagement plan is the process for gathering that public input for you all to then act on as to what mechanism you would like to pursue to fund this station. So the steps in that process would be, phase 1 is tonight, this presentation. Myself, Liam, in collaboration with our architects, fire department, have put all of this together for you, as well as help from 3 of you fellow council members as to what you wanted this engagement plan to look like. The hope is that this sheds some light for you all, everyone here in attendance, anybody watching at home, as to why the city keeps asking for this, even though, as I've seen on social media, we said no, shouldn't that tell you we don't want it? Just because the public said no doesn't mean the need went away. Phase 2 is redoing this presentation, but not in the formal setting of a city council meeting. Redoing this presentation in a public forum setting where we'll explain everything we've just explained tonight. And then once we're done, the public is welcome to stay, ask us as many highly detailed and super specific questions as they'd like to ask us. Our hope is that some of you all would join us at these public forums. Our firefighters themselves have indicated that they would love to join us at these public forums and help really explain what the need is of the department. So there would be 3 of those all hosted here at the Civic Center, and to try and accommodate as many work schedules as possible of our residents out there, 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon, 1 at night after normal business hours. Next slide. Phase 3 then is a more formal focus group to really give a solid recommendation to City Council. So you all would designate this focus group of volunteers from the public who are willing to give approximately 3 hours of their life to really learning about this process and telling us what they think is best. Our proposal is that each one of the 7 of you and the mayor picks 1 person to be in that focus group. No limitations as long as they live in the city of North Canton. This focus group would then convene with myself, Catherine, Jim, Gina, and we would talk in depth about our 3 primary funding options available to us: income tax, property tax, and reciprocity. Answering every question they have about how it works, who would be effective, what the funding works out to. The participants will then be asked to rate those 3 funding options. And the proposed rating scale is in the engagement plan in your packets for you tonight. It's publicly available for the public if anyone would like to see it on our website. There are 4 categories that we're going to ask them to score, all 3 of these from 1 to 10. Whatever scores highest will then be the resulting recommendation that we bring back to all of you and say that this seems to be what the public is most agreeable to. Our proposed dates for those at the moment, subject to availability of whoever gets appointed, are June 7th, June 11th, and June 13th. Next slide. So then the final phase is it comes back to you all for final adoption in legislation, for placement on the ballot, whatever that may be. As always, this is one final opportunity for public input, right? We have public speaks at every regular council meeting, one final opportunity for somebody to speak their mind. Next slide. As this is all going on, we'd like to have open houses at the fire department. So traditionally, the fire department has an open house first week of October every year for Fire Prevention Week, and it's traditionally geared towards children and teaching them about fire safety. There are wonderful pictures of firefighter Taylor helping a small child shoot a hose at a fake burning building. What we'd like to do with these open houses, though, is different. We'd like, traditionally for the open house, we take all the trucks out of the bay so that we can set up activities. We want to leave all the trucks in the bay so that people can really experience how close, how tight things are. We want them to be able to, we typically don't let people back into the staff quarters during the October. We want people to come back into the staff quarters. See for yourself how small the dorms are, how close you are to your neighbors sleeping. So our proposal is that these would be once every 2 months. So June, August, October, there are some potential dates up there for you. Those are not confirmed. Those are just what we're thinking now. They're all Mondays because typically the fire department has training on Monday nights. So they would essentially take the place of a training. And that would culminate then in the annual October open house, be the sort of last hurrah. So just brief review of everything we've been through here. The fire EMS facilities need has been known and unaddressed for more than 20 years. It is truly a need. It is not this administration wants to build a shiny new building to put Mayor Wilder's last name on top of it. It cannot be responsibly funded without an additional revenue source. In my opinion, and the opinion of those I speak to most, we have never been closer than we are before. We have land, we have a design that fits on that land, that meets all of the requirements our department needs. What we need now is some public input to find the best path forward. And so we have proposed this 3-month-long engagement plan for you all to try and get there. That is everything I have.
I would like to say something to Ben had shared, 2004 was when your process started. So I've been designing fire EMS facilities for about 27 years now. So I can remember 20 years ago, a station of this size and all the things that have been asked for. And as Ben mentioned, the ask has been the same all these years. But guess what? The cost is not. And so, but the same station 20 years ago was about $3.5 million. And here we are, 2024, and it'll be 2025. This building, whenever you get started construction, we're looking at 14 million. So the cost of waiting, that's one of the things that you're all dealing with now is the cost of waiting. It's 20 years. So the inflation, we're at a period right now where the cost of fire stations since 2017 has doubled since 2017. It's unbelievable. And the cost of fire apparatus, the same thing. It's really strange, but the cost of fire apparatus has followed the same trajectory as the cost of construction. And now you're paying double the cost for apparatus and buildings. So the urgency is there. Got to figure it out and get it done because it's just going to cost that much more in the future. We're just going to have to wait. So,
Raising the price on the safety of our residents and the price on the safety of our fire department personnel is even higher. I think it's time that we act.
I want to thank the public, but again, Mr. Young, I want to thank you again for the research, working with our fire department, and the plan before you is something that has taken a lot of time, a lot of effort to assess. And what we presented to you was some background information to let you know where we are today. So I hope you can picture in your mind what we're experiencing for the betterment of our city, let alone the betterment of our firefighters, our paramedics, and providing them a facility that hopefully will continue on for another 50 years and continue to keep our people safe, the services that they provide for us, and we are taking everything in consideration we can for protecting the firefighters and paramedics on their calls, coming and going. So thanks again, Mr. Young and your team for putting this together. And thank you for your indulgence tonight.
And I would like to extend that thanks to the members of the fire department who were gracious enough to come here tonight at my invitation. My hope is that all of you or anybody from the public who has a question that I couldn't answer or you don't want to take my word for it, please ask them.
And I'll add to that, Ben. So I had a chance, being new to council, wanting to get up to speed. I sat down with Ben to hear about some of the work that he's done with the fire department, because it's not just about building a new fire station. There's a lot of work that's been done to consolidate services. And I took my tour of the fire station the day that they were actually moving things around. People were out of their offices and moving things around to create those other living quarters. And they're really living in a state of limbo right now, because they've embarked on that change that's not just about a new fire station, it's about changes of how do we deliver service. And I kind of put Ben on the spot in front of some of our friends that I got a chance to talk to, and said, how does this feel to you? Is it worth it to you to go through this struggle if this is where we can get to? And they kind of echoed the things that I heard Ben say, and I was happy to hear that they really did work together with the administration to get to where we are, and that we've made a lot of changes to operate more efficiently and better, better serve the needs of the city and better serve those men and women who live in the state. So I really appreciate all your effort, all of your efforts for being here, and I believe that was going to Wilson. Absolutely.
I just want to add, in the engagement packet, page 12 does have the timeline, and working backwards, we're looking at the November filing date of August 7th. So like Ben mentioned, some of the open houses, those are tentative, but they're in there. And then look at the timeline of that. And that's why it's so important, organizationally, we want to make some changes. We got to stay on a timeline. We got to move the ball down the field. We can't stop. We got to keep going and get to the goal.
If I can just add, I've been part of doing this the wrong way twice now. In 2018, I was asked to be part of the citizens committee that evaluated the architects. We didn't evaluate the funding, we evaluated the architects, who we thought would be great, and that was lovely, and I was honored to be part of that. But again, we didn't ask the community, we can fund this. What are you interested in doing? How can we get this done? And then, this past year, we all know that there were some things said that this is going to happen regardless of if we get additional funding or not. And that was not said by anyone who's at the table. And that's not true. We've got to get the funding. So I just feel really good that we are moving forward with this plan to engage the community and get some buy-in and just make sure that these people have what they need. My house, I'm just going to go off on a personal story for 1 second, but my next door neighbor set the house on fire 12 years ago. It took down the house to the right. It broke windows in my house, took down the fence. I went to a doctor's appointment, got a phone call from friends who could see it and was your house on fire? Your house on fire. I run out of the doctor's appointment. I run home. I watch my friend's house burn down. I watch the arson's neighbor's house burn down. And these firefighters, make sure my house doesn't burn down, animals in there, there are people in there, but God, seeing what we're providing these people with, who are doing some hard work, it's not okay. So, thanks, Ben. Excellent presentation.
Yeah, thanks, Ben, for all your hard work. Thank you guys for coming in. If you have any questions, feel free to ask any one of us. But really, it's up to you. The citizens of the citizens of North Canton. But
In the United States.
I just wanted to throw out there and thank you, Ben and Liam, for what you put together, and thank you for members of our fire department for not only being here tonight, but also weighing in with Ben. And like Christine, I've had a number of instances where we relied upon fire department to come for my father. In fact, I see a couple of you here tonight who I've seen when we were in a time of need. And this isn't about, and I think it was said earlier, this is not about we want a shiny building to keep up with the Jacksons and the Plain Townships. This is about providing facilities to the people that we are asking to do a job that we desperately need in this community,
when we pick up that phone and call for an emergency, we want them to come, and we need them to come, and we need to provide them adequate facilities. And so I'm super excited about the presentation tonight, about the way that we're going to engage the community. And like Christina, I think it's fantastic, and I think it's also been echoed on this end of the table that I think that we're the closest we have come in the past 20 years. So thank you for being here this evening. Thank you, guys, and see what happens.
One thought, this is one thing that's so different, and I've been on council for a lot of years, and we've heard your asks and requests, and we've never had the privilege of you attending in this collaboration. And so to see you here and like, picturing you fighting over each other literally in the bathroom and someone locking someone else out and picturing like the pounding on the door and they have to the bathroom. Like it just doesn't seem like you can't make those kind of stories. And the fact that we, maybe put you in that position, it's not acceptable for what we want for our North Canton firefighters. And so I think we heard from, the public in November, but I don't think they got the whole picture. Mm-hmm. And it was, I know that when we talked and I talked to administration, I said, I'm not going to push this forward unless we reset. And if we need to do something different, and we haven't talked to the public and we haven't said, what are you willing to do and how can we collaborate with you? And so I love like this new tone. And I'm sitting here looking at the end. People do care about numbers. I mean, they want you to be safe and love the decontamination and do what you have in your bedroom and bathroom. But we do want to see the numbers. We know that we have other services that we have to provide. And the numbers are there. And if people can't do simple math, I know that in a few years it's kind of a wash. And I don't know what they're not seeing, but we've never ever presented those numbers before in that format. So I'm hoping that we can be there, like head for big boots, that you put on the road sometimes and we film too, and we can get this built. I'm already thinking of ways to, I know Jackson somehow had like all their fitness equipment, that was given to them by somebody. I feel like there's people like that in our community where in the end, a lot of that can even just be on top of everything. So I'm proud. Thank you for being here. It's really, it hasn't happened, so thank you.
I'll go. I thought it was a fantastic presentation. I feel like this should be done every month till it goes on the ballot, whenever we decide it's going to be on the ballot. Because that was,
Sure. You're committing me to a lot of nights.
but that's what we need. We need a very comprehensive approach like that was very transparent, very to the point, and to prioritize it as just a consolidated fire EMS building, nothing else to it. I think the crazy thing is you go to these open houses and you see these 20-plus-year-old fire vehicles that look pristine, mm-hmm. and it's amazing how much care that you take of these vehicles, but if there's little rust on it, then maybe people would be seen out. Joking about that part. But you go to these open houses and the children are there and they're walking through a wide open area. But then when you walk through and the fire trucks and the vehicles are this far away from each other, I think those open houses, if we can get as many people to those as possible, just to see what you guys deal with on a daily basis, and how tight it is, and how old those buildings are. I mean, for God's sakes, we got an exemption on the sleeping quarters because it was a historical building. It's so old that it doesn't have to be ADA compliant. That is ridiculous. Mm-hmm. So thank you all for coming, and I encourage the collaboration. I'm really looking forward to the public input. I think that's going to be very important. So thank you all.
Ben, are we allowed, so when because I'm kind of thinking about the communication and how it kind of goes out to more people. I don't know if Robert William is here or not tonight, but, and a lot of people don't read the policy. So how does this information get out? So as firefighters, are they allowed to say, hey, we're having an open house tonight, could this be a social media blitz?
Oh, absolutely. So
that's what we need your help with.
Everything that's in this plan, we, the administration, don't technically need your permission to do. It's all within administration's authority, but we're we are here asking for council support and help. We hope that you will come to these sessions and these open houses and you'll agree to appoint people to this focus group. And then, President Stroya, to your point, with this being a long and very good presentation, this was the truncated version. With some of the research we did, there was so
Thank you.
much more. Just in the specifics of everything that people are exposed to. So I think when we're looking at that kind of thing, you know, what the human cost in addition to the financial is very important. In addition with open houses might be very informative because I'm pretty sure I still have a bruise or a scar from where I cracked my shin during my tour.
Okay, I think we're ready to move. Nope, just ready to move on.
So Ben, what's the next steps to follow this time? What do you need?
What I am hoping for from council tonight is that you will all adopt some sort of motion stating that you support the plan and you agree that at the first committee of June, when we come back to you all and ask you to appoint somebody to the focus group, you will be willing and ready to do so.
I make that motion to accept the report to move forward with the timeline that's presented here, communication to the public, and establish processes that we need to move forward with the financing.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. You're up to the next one.
So, long discussion. We have another discussion, and I'd like to open up again the discussion on providing emergency services for our dispatch. What that looks like in terms of what are we going to do in terms of outsourcing, not outsourcing, changing information in the packet. I encourage your comments from other council members.
I'm going to the red center on Friday, visited, I went to the meeting, garbage country. I think there's a lot of questions that still need to be answered on this. You know, it's a lot of unanswered questions that need to be answered, and I would like to take more time to find those questions, the answers to those questions and stuff. Matt, do you want to?
Yeah, let me weigh in differently. I think we definitely need more time. There's more discussions that need to happen. I've had some conversations behind the scenes, and there's some adjustments we could make already. So,
Like what?
well,
There's
there's
from the dispatch union president, who disclosed some saving costs, and I think we need to look at those, balance those.
Which would, you mean the layoffs?
So either layoffs with attrition, the adjustment of staffing. There's also the question of whether or not we're going to be required to have 3 individuals on staff at all times to cover for 2 that need to be there 24/7, or if something rolls over in mind, and after that, there can be an adjustment made. I think the fact that the union said that maybe there are options for staffing where we can reduce staffing to 1 at nights and weekends needs to be weighed into the calculations to what is the actual cost savings. And then again, as stated before, what are we losing? Because we're going to have to maintain some type of record management system.
Yeah, there's some scheduling adjustments that can be made. And I don't think that I don't even know if it's possible, but it would be nice to have a breakdown of all the different things that this dispatch does for law enforcement, because there's so much overlap and so much that dispatch does, that when we were given that initial information, it was just kind of all the costs of dispatch. But if we break that out and we did regionalize, how many jobs would we have to keep to make up for all that change? And would we keep our non-emergency dispatch? I think it would be absolutely beneficial to our community to keep a non-emergency dispatch fund. There's no doubt. But how many employees is that? Is it 3? Is it 4? I don't know. If you accompany a scheduling adjustment with that, I don't know how much money we're saving.
So when you say non-emergency dispatch, so the rec center is doing it, and they're doing it for Jackson, and they're doing it for Massland, and they're doing it for other entities. So.
But there's no way they're doing it at the level that we're doing it. There's no
Yes,
way.
and you've compared.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
I sat there with them too.
Yeah.
So like, give me an example of a call that you saw there that you feel like.
An example is at all times, there's a network of cameras above and you have 2 dispatchers usually. And they have live access to all those cameras that are there.
If need be, we have, well, how many cameras do we have in this community? That they
A lot.
can look at,
Yeah.
which somebody on staff could then go and look at those cameras if they got a call from dispatch and said, is this happening?
Yeah.
But I think it's also more than just cameras and picking up the phone. It's the people coming to the window. It's the safety net of knowing that there's somebody there 24 hours a day. We had that joke that was on Facebook about the fire department being closed. We're going to run into that with the police department. I mean, that should be a safe place in the community. And I went to the Red Center as well. I have no doubt that they'd be able to provide effective dispatching services for the city. But I feel that we'd be losing too much by losing the dispatch center.
So how do you separate two? How do you separate, if you say that they would provide a good dispatch service? How do you separate the two? And what do you need to maintain the other services that are vital or important?
That's what
That's what we have.
So until we find that dividing line, can we truly make a decision on whether or not we want to move dispatch? Now, when I say dispatch, I'm referring to the function of dispatch, not
The lead dispatch?
North Canton's dispatch team and the functions and everything that they provide.
Because it is more than just dispatch. Yeah.
But we're looking at moving dispatch.
And some of that, yeah. And we have a lead dispatcher, right? So that's really different. And that was a really different conversation I had in that department and the responsibilities of that lead dispatcher versus what other people do. There was a lot of overtime. So now we're talking about 3 people less. So the statements you're making are, we have these cameras, we have these items, and now you're talking about making cuts to our dispatch.
Well, why did the
What does
overtime
that
exist? Did the overtime exist because of the scheduling requirements? In my opinion, it did.
And sometimes purposeful, to be honest.
So are you willing to vote tonight to?
No.
Okay. 'Cause
No,
that's-
not
We
tonight.
have no clue how much this is going to
Right.
save.
Oh, I think we have
might save us money, but I think it's going to be far less. than
Just
what
one
we
at a
think
time,
it will be.
please.
I think it's going to be far.
Can we have
less
one at
than-
a time, please?
Yeah, I was on a roll. I think it's going to be far less than what we think it will be.
I think right now with the proposal that was suggested, there are a lot of what ifs. There's, what if we lay off 3 people? What if 2 people retire? We can't force people to retire. What if we don't have a lead dispatcher? What if we actually evaluated, what could the police do? And there have been comments made by some individuals that have said, could the police do some of those duties? Is there time? I don't know. I mean, we all know when we get to certain situations with different work scenarios. If you have help and people aren't doing things, everybody pitches in. That's the way it goes. But is that necessary, or have duties started to delineate in cross sections?
What if, I hate cutting any part of city. My constituents don't want it. People I've talked to that live in my world. There's gotta be, have we looked at the other departments within the city that maybe were overstaffed or they could save some money? And then, I don't think safety, any type of safety should be the last.
Well, frankly, I think if we're to the point where we're saying we need to look at safety services, we should be looking at everything else as well. I don't know. I
I
agree.
think we are. You guys, you all received a report from finance, I think it was when, was it March? For how many millions in cuts? We're not doing this and this, and we can break that out. We could have them pulled up right now.
Right.
We are looking at other areas. Right now, we're not filling the two staffing individuals right now that were in operations. We have been looking.
We have 140 employees right now in the city. The city has not grown that much. We've stayed. Sure, there's been more requirements and stuff of that nature. Looks like it might be overstaffed.
But on
That's
the flip
fine.
side,
It's, let's try to keep this to dispatch. I
Right.
mean, we're talking about dispatch, the pros and cons of the other departments really should be set aside for this conversation.
But before we talk about this, we should have to take a look at the other.
We should, I agree.
You know, we should take a look at the other departments.
I agree.
We're looking at reviewing whether or not the service of dispatch can be met to the same level at regional center. And they have access to seeing everybody in surrounding area, not just in the Canton, and what benefits that provides. So again, as President Stoic said, let's look at this in terms of the tasks, the duties, responsibilities, and the services. What our residents need, what Chief Campbell feels is extremely important for his staff, for the police officers. Separating that function of dispatch from the other functions. And what does that look like in terms of dollars and savings, or no savings, and what's the right decision to move forward? We don't have a answer, but I think most of the detail has been provided by Mr. Young and administration, but I think we need to analyze it a little closer. I want to spend more time both at our center and at the Red Center, since that's the one that everybody had voted as their number one choice.
I think the reason I liked the Red Center was, I liked that they were able to communicate with each other. So it concerns me a little bit, we would go down to one person. I liked that they had each other as a backup. So sure, one person would be on North Canton one day, and the next person they're on Mass, and the next day they're on Jackson. I love that they're training and understanding the whole community at a large and understanding, I guess, best practices. I love that it's a dispatch, you know, but I also appreciated that fire was right there, having its own dispatch. And while I was there, somebody had a fire call, but then the police, because they were able to talk to each other, said, hey, I think I've got this. I'll help you out on this or do this. So I love seeing the collaboration. I love the work environment. I like that our people, they could take most of them right now. They are in need of dispatchers. I like that the salaries match. I like that their equipment was up to date, that they have a regional board where they're getting advice and suggestions from, which we would participate in. It's the only one where we would have a board position, and they're possibly even offering us maybe more than one position. So I thought there were a lot of perks. And I appreciated sitting down in ours too, and I was able to talk to a police officer as well and get some really good feedback. I think I was disappointed that some of our dispatchers had not been over there. I think every one of them should go over as well so that they can see and ask questions. They asked me questions that were not true at all. So, you know, they're not getting the right information as well. So I want to make sure that we're seeing from both sides, but with a collective responsibility to our citizens.
so what I saw, because I went on to the Red Center as well, I heard that they would take some, but not all of our dispatchers. So there will be some people that will be out of a job, which is an unfortunate scenario. But I also saw that level of collaboration
Yeah.
amongst our current dispatchers. I not
Yeah,
only did
I
I
did
sit
too.
and dispatch for a couple hours, I also did a ride along with an officer, with Officer King. It was a very informative and exciting evening. We have that level of collaboration as well.
Ours is internal. This is a bigger collaboration that they're having a better way to set up.
I mean, I like the Red Center. I thought it was, there's no doubt that they could handle the responsibilities. But they don't have the familiarity that our dispatch has to their community. And that's, is there a price on that? I don't know what it is, but we need to figure out what the potential cost savings would be. Because as of now, I guess the most upsetting thing is dispatch was never given the opportunity to come to us and present their case. You know, they found out about this because it was on the agenda. That's not fair.
But Matt, they have been that, so we're including them.
I agree.
We are not, so.
But we obviously need more time to develop what these costs are. I mean, there's no doubt about that. And give them the opportunity to pitch that case. And for us to put a timeline again, I don't think that's right.
So initially, we believe that the equipment is going to need to be replaced in the short window. That's not the case. We do have a little longer than regardless of the decision you make, that equipment still plays into the calculation what the cost of dispatch is going to be as we make decisions not just tomorrow, but for 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. I think that's what we need to do.
And I think if you don't move on to some decision, you're leaving people with. So I think a lot of work has been done in this example too. I don't think we're ever going to have dispatch come to us and collectively say, yes, let half of us go, we want to go to Jackson. That isn't the way jobs work. I mean, a friend was just let go today by an email, the company cut 600 people. People do lose jobs, I understand that, because of cost-saving measures, because of the responsibility of those in charge to make sure that we have the means. So we can take our time, but let's just say it's 300,000. So you start putting that, divided by 12, it still adds up.
But
So each month that we're not deciding, it still adds up.
we're put in office to not only be good stewards of the financial resources, but we're also put in office to ensure that our residents are protected, whether it be from police or whether it's in need of fire or EMS. So I don't want us to lose sight and think that we are only here pinching pennies.
I don't think that's it though. Like, I think we've been tasked with this, like Ben has said, the fire station. The dispatch has been put on the agenda of council for many years. This is again the furthest that we've ever gotten. So we have to look at it. This isn't some new idea. The community has regionalized. This isn't something that people have said, oh, I don't care about, East Canton. I don't care about this area. I don't care about this area. Massillon never said it didn't care about their citizens when they went regional. That was never what it was about. It's about what is best for the citizens. And that's why they did that. But looking at all aspects.
And to that point, I don't know, maybe you lead a double life, but I don't think any of us at this table have ever worn a badge and carried a gun or been a firefighter. We brought in well, I mean, you have, I'm saying,
I'm leaving right there.
that actually.
It's not personal.
That was going to be my second comment. What do you think? Will you share your thoughts on what you think? Should we regionalize?
Well, there's some background that I'd like to share. Public safety has always been my focus. Giving back to the community, public service has always been in my DNA. I served 36 years with the police department proudly, and I'm proud of that department. I'm proud of everybody that's worked there. Loyal employees. As I recall, when we were trying to get 2 supervisors on every shift so that supervision was always paramount, I fought to get that second or that last sergeant. So we had 2 sergeants, 2 supervisors on every shift. And when it was brought to me that how do we take care of our dispatchers so that someone's not working by themselves, so they have time to go to a restaurant, have a meal without being interrupted? I think I went to bat. I know I went to bat, and we got 2 dispatchers on every shift, so that midnights wasn't alone by themselves. So that's important that we protected our people in-house and also on the road. What's before you, though, is a proposal It's not something that's being imposed on our dispatching, our police department. But what you have in front of you is an accessibility report of the 4 regional communication centers. We were tasked to go out and research and bring that information. I think it's important that the dispatchers from our communication center be actually involved more than they are previously. The ultimate decision will rest with the legislation of this council to go forward, okay? Regionalization has its benefits. My main concern is how will we continue to afford the technology that continues to evolve, and how do we continue to pay for our employees? Those are 2 of my major concerns as how we do that. If we were to regionalize, I would make sure that our employees would be taken care of to the utmost professional capabilities that they are entitled to. So really, I'm not going to give you a final decision right now. It based a lot with the discussion that you are asking to go forward with. Continue your accessibility of what we have. Find out if there's any budget things that can be addressed. But I am a little concerned that we would go ahead and make a statement that we're going to cut positions in the city. That really concerns me. What message is that sending to our employees without any other discussion? So I caution council on that point that our employees are secure in their positions. I'm not about to cut services unless it's a dire need for us. We have loyal employees here that provide a service in more ways than one, whether you're in the street department, parks. We have worked at times where we've been short-staffed, and I know what that's like. Longer hours, morale drops, work drops. People become disgruntled. We provide excellent services in this community, and I take a lot of pride in that, personally. And I want our employees to know that they are secure in their positions. This is a phase that we are going through. It's going to be accessibility. You're going to look at things, make decisions on how you want to go forward. We have a budget to balance too, and we're responsible for that stewardship. We have a number of things to go through that we're trying to bridge a revenue gap with the properties that we have. And we're going to work through that. This is a period of time that we're going to get through. But I'm just really concerned when this council go ahead and start saying that we're going to make cuts to employees. That doesn't sit with me well tonight, because we're here to take care of our people and our city and our community. They all perform services, and some of us more beyond than what the public really realizes. The little things that we do to make this city function and for people to enjoy the benefits of living here. Public safety is number one. It always has been. That's why I went into this career. But there are things we always need to look at as we go forward, because change happens. And I know our community doesn't always like change. But there are things that we need to think about to improve the quality and the services that we perform. That's it.
So Mayor, let me ask you a question then.
Go ahead.
So one of the proposals was that it was from dispatch to cut 3 people. So you didn't like that?
Cut 3 people?
Yeah, so possibly lay off 3 people and attrition of 2 others.
I'm not interested in cutting people, Bethany. If they can be reassigned, find another position within the city, or if another agency can bring 4 or 5 of our employees over, we have 9 dispatchers, 3 could be absorbed into here. Where does that leave us? I really don't want to have to cut people per se. But I'm looking at if there's an agency that's willing to accept our talented and let them work. And we can give an avenue for our employees to stay here, whether it's going to be 2, 3. I would say yes.
And the need has to be there, I would think. Not just hiring people willy-nilly and nothing. I don't know how that makes sense, but.
This has been before council before.
It's been talked about.
Yeah, it's not through council, and they decided not to go through it.
It was a last minute discussion and the council president pulled it from the agenda. I think it was, he had spoken to, it was actually someone's relative. Yep. So it became personal. And that's what it's.
17, when was?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, I mean, our jobs probably have to remove a little bit from that.
Well, I mean, I don't think we're anywhere near ready to make any type of decision whatsoever. I'm going to make a motion to table it.
Propose that. Let's not go down the path of tabling it and removing it from discussion.
I'm going to make the motion to table that's what I'm going to put on the floor. You guys can discuss it, but that's my
Okay, so
motion.
for discussion purposes, I would say that let's not table this now and kill it.
Can bring it back when we have more information.
We're gathering more information, and there's 30-some pages in this month, of this week's packet that need to be read, and not just read, I read through them, they need to be analyzed. We need to get some more information where there are questions, but the table this removes it from the discussion that we have, and we are tasked with making a decision here.
Yeah.
And that decision, tabling it, takes that away from us to analyze and come to a conclusion.
You were doing exactly what our council president did before.
We can reintroduce this at any point, anytime,
What
but
do you
what's
need?
the timeline then? Do you guys want to put a timeline on this?
Do we have to put a timeline on it?
No, that's why I want to table it.
About $40,000 each month.
So by tabling.
Based on what?
The numbers we've been already given.
Which we've decided are absolutely not any word, shape, or form accurate.
Really?
Yes.
Really? So the numbers that Ben has provided, the numbers that Gina has provided are not accurate.
They're not separated out for what
They
dispatch
are
and law
separated
enforcement
out.
do. They absolutely are not.
Gina?
There's a lot of data that has been compiled.
Do not.
It's,
I'm not insulting anybody.
it sounds like what President Schroeder is getting at is that our dispatch provides dispatch and law enforcement support function. And that those two things are not separated from each other.
Then we need to.
I will say that we are
Law enforcement.
unique.
Now.
We are unique in that we do that. I mean, they're the only other community in the whole county that asks their dispatchers to do law enforcement activities as well is Minerva. Everybody else has a separated dispatch and civilian support corps for their police department. So I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe what you're getting at is you'd like us to try and figure out what that civilian support corps piece looks like.
And we can do that without tabling
Right.
this legislation.
Don't be vague and say there isn't enough information. There are 40 plus pages. There's hours and hours of assessments. We have all spent time now at both facilities. We have been asked by administration to do this.
I think we owe it to administration, we owe it to the police department, we owe it to the dispatch to come to a conclusion on where we're going to go. By tabling this, removes it from further discussion. To bring it back up, as you say, requires you, who is tabling this, to put it back on the agenda. And I find that as a way of limiting us as a group to further discuss this and to come to a conclusion. Allow us to bring this back and talk about it in 2 weeks, at our next committee meeting. It's not
In 2 weeks. So we're pushing forward a timeline for it?
Why not?
Okay.
Why wouldn't we let dispatch say in 2 months, we'll have an answer? I would hope that.
Then in 2 months, why would we not table it and bring it back at a proper time? When we have all the information, we're just going to keep postponing it and kicking it down the road?
We're finding out information. You say that you have all these questions that you want to ask. You came up with what? Which Ben is working on. Gina is working on.
I've talked about several of them before. One is, are we going to keep non-emergency dispatch? If so, how many employees are we going to keep for that?
That
Are we
goes
going
the
to have a
question.
civilian side? If so, what is that title measure? What does it pay? How does that work? How does it function with administration? Is it part of law enforcement? Is it not? There's a lot of different questions that I've put into, I mean, I have written them down. I've had discussions.
Then let's get answers, but we don't need to.
There's a motion on the floor.
Well, you need a
Wait,
second.
wait, a second. Wait,
You don't have to.
I was just gonna throw out, okay, this has been really interesting, so I haven't had a chance to weigh back in with the connection with the mayor. I apologize. If you will indulge me, where I was going with my comment about the fact that none of us on this side of the table, not the mayor, don't have any experience with law enforcement. We have engaged a consulting firm for the fire department. Would it be prudent to look into somebody to come in? They can ferret out how much time is being spent for non-dispatch. Give us a functions, give us a true picture on things.
I think we have that in data in terms of the number of calls that we receive, the amount of dispatch
I don't,
calls, fire department calls. I think we have the data to determine that. I think that's why regional centers are so successful, because they differentiate between records management and the police work that they are doing for us, which is a huge benefit,
Yeah,
and the dispatch.
and I'm not
you're
saying,
absolutely right. We see that with the Red Center, but we don't see that with Norcom, with our police.
so maybe the police chief would differentiate and say, this is what they're doing, these are the amount of hours I need, and we could truly differentiate.
That's what you're asking.
That's exactly what I'm asking.
You have to say, that's not moving this.
I'm asking to table till we come up with all these, I mean, I think it's going to take longer than 2 weeks to come up with all these answers.
On other topics, we've allowed that, we've gone back and forth and we've said, okay,
What other topics have we postponed multiple times waiting on?
the fire station. When we were going through it, which we wanted to push through there quickly, we did. And we kept coming back and saying, okay, we're going to ask in 2 weeks, we're going to ask in 2 weeks. And then when we get new questions and new answers, for the budget, we do it. We keep it going. It gives us.
Is there something stopping it from coming back on the
I'm asking
agenda?
to not kill the conversation when you're having a productive conversation. I'm asking that we continue this. I don't see the need for a set timeline now that we're not hamstrung with the need for equipment.
It's the entire point of why I want to table it. So there is no pressure on it, that we can come up with our own timeline to decide this. It can be brought up at any time.
I think we need to keep the discussion open and not limit it to sometime in the future. We need to discuss this in the committee every time we meet.
Okay, so how many times are we going to postpone it?
Maybe we'll have enough answers and we'll call for a vote. And we can say we want administration to move forward with this process.
And move it to the council agenda. Just because we keep it on committee doesn't mean we have to table it to kill it. We can continue the discussion. If there are no questions to be asked, then it's time for a vote. But there's still questions being asked. I think that's good. I think that our dispatch deserves the fact that we're analyzing this to the nth degree. Table it and move it from the discussion isn't fair.
I think postponing it over and over and over is also not fair to anybody either. I mean, so we're going to have semantics on this. I just don't understand why we can't just bring it back up when we're ready to bring it back up. Why every 2 weeks we have to discuss something that when we're not ready to do it. That's where I don't understand it. We're putting a timeline on a very important decision in my opinion.
I think we all think it's important.
Okay, then
So
why
why-
not
why-
table it and come up with a better plan?
The answers to the questions. If in 2 weeks, Ben can figure this out and he talks to the chief and he talks to a dispatch and we can figure some of these out and the duties are delineated. I would love that. And then that gives us more information.
We could just vote to bring it off the table. Instead, as a parliamentarian, couldn't somebody, if an item is taken, could a member of council make a motion to bring something off the table?
Bring it up in new
So
business.
the
Bring
mo,
up a new business?
the motion to table in parliamentary procedure is intended for, there's an emergency we need to get to first. So because of that, for a motion to table, if you all table it here and it is not brought off the table at the next committee, it is dead. Now, we are in committee, you know, it's not like we have to restart the readings process or something, but it is dead, so to speak. Because it is tabled, I wouldn't put it on the agenda, like one of you would have to, on the floor of your own volition, make a motion to take from the table the dispatch conversation.
Can be brought back anytime.
Would that be,
Specifically by you, it's on your committee. You could bring it back up on new business.
Part of my committee, I'm asking not table it. I'm asking the rest of the council to keep the discussion alive, keep the importance behind this, and not set it aside and kill it. to Ben's point.
I don't see this as killing it at all. I think this is postponing it on without time.
Well,
Yeah, otherwise, we're just kicking it down every two weeks.
roll call vote, please.
we don't have a second?
I second.
John seconded.
This is a motion to table?
If you'd like a roll call vote, we need a motion to divide the house.
I make a motion to divide the house. Thank you, Ben, for parliamentary procedure.
Second?
And that motion doesn't require a vote. As long as it gets a second, it has to happen. All right, so it is a motion to table the discussion on dispatch. Member Warren?
No.
Member Matheny?
No.
Member Orr?
Yeah.
Member Wyrick?
No.
Member Owens?
No.
Member McLeister?
Yes.
Member Stroya?
Yes.
3 in favor, 4 opposed, motion passed.
So then, like I said, you can get some of those questions, and then if there are other questions that people have, they'll bring them to you, just like we do for budget. You know, you ask all the time during budget, and Jen, what are your questions, what are your questions? Are there questions from the public that we need to know? Let's keep asking. We're trying to do the right thing. And we appreciate the work that all of you have.
So Ben, what next steps do we need to? Yes, take that. We done now?
Yeah, there's no legislation to be moved forward. As you know, Member Warren said, you're welcome to send me questions and I'll track down answers. I mean, some of the questions that just came up tonight, like I have the answer to, but none of you have ever asked me before. Like overtime this past year was 554 and a half hours or 158 a month. As far as, you know, what are our actual cost savings between a regional versus if we go with dispatch's proposal to reduce cuts that is on the last page of your packet here is what those savings would break out to, and it is still a savings to join a regional. I guess just please ask, yeah.
I don't want to come to council and be back and keep saying, I have all these questions and the work hasn't been done. And yet, questions. Ask your questions.
Matt, if you want a time study, job study, more duties, what you mentioned, all the extra, just kind of let us know what you need and we can work with dispatch.
I've discussed it before. The request is already there.
Okay. We'll get what you need.
Anything else?
Any other discussion on this? Do we have to make a motion for this one?
I don't know, would be a question.
Does there need to be a motion to postpone? No. Okay, all right.
You've chosen not to move forward at this time.
Okay. We'll make a motion to adjourn.
Wait,
Oh, yeah, sorry. Mayor wants to say a few things.
Mother's Day is Sunday.
I was supposed to say
No,
that.
I'm going to say it. Don't forget about Mother's Day. But I do want to thank our citizens who showed up for our National Day Fair that we had last week, and we had a nice turnout for that. And I was asked to say something on behalf of United States Postal Service. They're going to have this, if you don't mind, National Association of Letter Carriers, about they're having their annual Stamp Out Hunger food drive that will be occurring Saturday, May 11th, 2024. And letter carriers and their volunteers have collected millions of pounds of food for the local communities. So what happens on the 11th, letter carriers, with the help of postal employees and other crafts, family, friends, and volunteers, will collect bags of non-perishable food placed near their mailboxes by the residents. Again, that's on May 11th. That's Saturday. So I was asked to share that with our community, and that is what I'm doing. So thanks for that time to do that.
National Day of Prayer.
National Day of Prayer was very successful. Our North Canton Ministerial Society put it on. We had about 10 participants, and that occurred on the 2nd of May. That's the national day for it. So once again, we supported it and had a nice turnout on Pittsburgh Park for that. Thank you.
Make a motion to adjourn.
So
All in favor? Aye. Opposed?